Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Politics, hosted by the Dallas Examiner newspaper. The Dallas Examiner wants to inform our community about candidates for elected offices so that when they go to the polls, they are informed voters. We do not endorse candidates. Tonight we have as our moderator, Demetria McCain. Demetria is a Dallasite, and she has served as a moderator for Monday Night Politics for several years. Demetria.
Okay. Thank you and happy Monday, everyone. We are back. We are back for week 3 for Monday Night Politics. And if you've been with us for this ride for the last couple of weeks, then you know we've got some rich information and good stuff for you to know about as you prepare to vote. But first, a couple of housekeeping items. Each candidate will receive 2 minutes for opening statements and 2 minutes for closing statements. Candidates will answer questions. A few might be put out there by myself, but we certainly invite you to ask your questions. That's exactly what Monday Night Politics is all about, is to get the audience's questions answered. Can't promise we'll get to all of them. Now, in order to ask your question, we ask for you to put it in the Q&A box, all right? Not the chat box, but the Q&A box in order to get your questions answered. And I will try to get to as many of them as possible. Today, we are exclusively looking at candidates for judicial court. And we've got 4 races that we're going to cover. The first race we will cover will be Civil District Court number 95. And that includes candidates Judge Monica Purdy. If you will unmute your video, please. And candidate Mike Lee. At this time, we appear to have candidate Purdy available to us. So if you could, let me see if I can try to unmute it for you, just in case. There we are, there we are. And you are now unmuted. So Judge Purdy, as mentioned earlier, you have 2 minutes for opening and then 2 minutes for closing, but in between, we'll do Q&A with the audience. So the floor is all yours. We do have a timekeeper, Christy Thomas, who's available to us. She'll be keeping time on your behalf. When you hear that very annoying sound, know that your time is up, and I may kind of push through to kind of move us along. So the floor is yours, Judge Purdy. Go right ahead.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here this evening, to the Dallas Examiner and the many sponsors of this evening's forum. As Mrs. Bell said, an informed, educated voter is the best way in which to protect our democracy. So again, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Monica Purdy, and I'm running to be your next judge of the 95th Civil District Court. This is a court of general jurisdiction that hears a broad range of civil cases. The court hears all types of cases from breach of contract, wrongful death, personal injury, medical malpractice, to a complex business disputes. It is the highest trial court in our state. I've served as a judge for the past 10 years. I've served as the municipal court judge for the city of Dallas for 3 years. And for the past 7 years, I've served as an associate judge in our district courts. One of the difference in these positions is that they are appointed positions. I was appointed by City Council to serve as a municipal court judge, and I was unanimously appointed by the Civil District Court judges to serve as one of their associate judges. An associate judge performs all of the same day-to-day judicial tasks that an elected judge performs. I support 7 of the 13 Civil District Courts in my role as an associate judge, and I handle matters that are referred to me from various courts, which are typically discovery disputes, motions, temporary restraining orders, temporary injunctions, jury, and bench trials. I'm running to become the next judge of the 95th Civil District Court because the time is now for me to step up and to continue to serve all citizens of Dallas County. I'm running because I want to make sure that justice is served to all citizens that come before the court, and I'm running because I'm committed to making sure our courthouse doors remain open to those that don't believe they have access to our courts. I'm a graduate of 2 HBCUs, Spelman College and Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University. Dallas is the home that I've created for me and my family. And I'm Monica Purdy. I hope to earn your vote and support as the next judge.
Thank you very much. So audience, please use the Q&A box for your questions, but I'm gonna go ahead and get us started here. Now, Judge Purdy, you mentioned that you want to make sure that the courts are accessible and open for everybody. What would you bring to your position to help make that happen?
Well, I think one of the important things to make sure that you bring to this court is a wealth of experience and knowledge. I have been serving, like I said, for the past 10 years in a judicial capacity. I have combined judicial and legal experience of 28 years. I'm already working in the courts that I'm ultimately seeking the voter support to be elected to. I think one of the ways to make sure that courthouse doors remain open is to actually participate with a lot of the legal clinics that we already have here in Dallas County by partnering with our law schools that have various clinics that assist a lot of our pro se litigants on some very routine matters that they have in our court. A lot of times when I have a pro se litigant that is before me as the judge, and they have an issue that is probably a little bit too technical for them to handle, I take the time with them to either make sure that they are directed to resources that can get them a lawyer to appear in my court so that they won't be at a disadvantage, or many times I have the authority to appoint an attorney to them. So I think that you have to have a judge that understands those nuances in order to keep the courthouse doors open and be concerned about them staying open from that gesture.
Thank you. Question. There's been talk around the country for a few years now about the concept of civil Gideon rights, right? And so just for our audience, everyone has a right to counsel in criminal matters, but you don't necessarily have a right to counsel in civil matters. And so in parts of the country, there's been a real push for that. Now, clearly, if elected, you would not have the authority to make that happen. But what are some of your thoughts as it relates to this idea of people having a civil right to counsel?
Well, one of the things that I want to make sure that your viewers know tonight, as the associate judge, I see lots of pro se litigants. And for the audience tonight, that is someone who comes to court without a lawyer. They come either because they don't wish to have a lawyer, but I can tell you that a lot of them come because they simply cannot afford a lawyer. One of the oaths that you take as a judge, and one of the things that we are bound by, is I cannot assist that pro se litigant. They are going to be held to the same standard as a lawyer if they choose to go forward with their case. But it's a very difficult court to navigate. It's the highest trial court in our state. And so I really think that for those that come without a lawyer, that they are operating at a disadvantage. And I would like to see everyone start off on the same playing field. Many times there are deadlines in some of our statutes, and if you miss those, they can be deadly and prove fatal to your case.
Could you give us an idea of whether or not you've seen a trend in your experience as it relates to the types of cases where people are often pro se? Is there a trend to the types of cases? Because clearly the court deals with lots of types of civil cases.
Correct. It's a court with broad discretion, as I mentioned, but I would say the trends that I see the most with respect to someone coming to court without a lawyer are going to be those particular situations that are an emergency for that litigant. I'm seeing the trends as it relates to a foreclosure on someone's home. We know because of COVID and the pandemic that we find ourselves in, a lot of people have chosen to get a forbearance on their mortgage. But if they have been let go of their job or they have been furloughed, whenever that forbearance goes away, they're still not going to have the funds in which to pay their mortgage. A lot of people come because literally the next day their home is set to be sold on the courthouse steps. That is a trend. That is where I see people operating without counsel. And again, operating without counsel can prove to be fatal to your case. So that is probably the biggest one that I see coming to our courts on a return basis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I have, I think we've exhausted the questions actually. So at this time, you have 2 minutes for closing, Judge Purdy.
All right. All right, I'm ready. I'm asking for your vote and support to become the next judge of the 95th Civil District Court. No other candidate in this race has the on-the-job experience that I possess and would bring to this bench. Over the past 7 years, I've presided over hundreds of cases as a judge in 7 of the 13 district courts, including some in the 95th. I have consistently earned amongst the highest ratings of all of my judicial colleagues, ranking as one of the top 3 judges in Dallas County, even though I've been serving by appointment. My understanding and application of the law, as well as my professional and unbiased ability to serve justice, has been tried and proven on both sides of the bench. I'm the only candidate in this race with broad judicial experience. I'm running because I am prepared and I am well qualified to serve. I want to continue to serve the community as an elected jurist, having honed years of experience as an associate judge. I want to ensure justice is fair and balanced for those that appear before this court. I believe in public service, and I want to bring my knowledge of applicable law, strong work ethic, impeccable judicial temperament to the 95th Civil District Court. Cast your vote early for Judge Monica Purdy, a candidate who truly checks all of the boxes.
Thank you very much, Judge Purdy. And we're going to ask before you go, if you could possibly provide us with your website. And
sure, I'll put that in the chat. Is that where you
exactly.
want it to go?
Exactly. Okay. For everyone's viewing, Okay.
Well, so, thank you again for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. All right, folks. So next up, we have Judicial District number 14. And so we do have 2 candidates available to us today. I'm going to ask both Judge Moye as well as Jessica Boys-Lewis to start your videos and unmute yourselves. Let's see here. I believe I successfully have done that. Yes, yay, Zoom is our friend today. Thank you very much for being here. Again, folks, this is 14. Judicial District number 14. And candidates, if you were with us, you heard the timekeeper buzz the buzzer. So you'll have 2 minutes opening each, and then you'll have 2 minutes closing each. And we'll begin in alphabetical order for opening. So Judge Moye will go first. For closing, Jessica Lewis, you will go first, all right? And then we'll go back and forth. You both get the opportunity to answer the questions, all right? And questions can be answered within 1 minute's time. All right, so if we could, we will, Ms. Lewis, you and I can mute our videos while Judge Moye does his opening. That would be great. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. It's been wonderful to have participated in Monday Night Politics over the years. I kind of miss the dynamism of having everybody in the same room though. But thank you all for participating. Thank you for viewing. My name is Eric Moye. I'm the presiding judge of the 14th Judicial District Court of Texas. I've been your presiding judge of this court since my election in 2008. I have a broad wealth of experience which I bring to this court. I started practicing law in Dallas in 1979. I was appointed by Ann Richards to be the judge of the 101st Civil District Court in 1993. And I've been a partner at a large firm between my time on the bench then and my current tenure. I have won awards from the Dallas Bar Association, from lawyers groups, and from state bar groups as well. I have the most efficient of the 13 civil district courts in Dallas. I consistently have the lowest number of active cases. What that means is when you have a case, when you file a case, or when you're defending a case, you can be sure that your case will be heard quickly. I have litigated the kinds of cases which are presented in the 14th District Court through my 30 years of practice. I graduated from Southern Methodist University in 1976 and Harvard Law School in 1979. I've been privileged to be members of the faculty at both places, teaching history at SMU and on the adjunct faculty teaching, guest faculty at Harvard teaching trial advocacy. I've been a Democrat my entire life. I look forward to serving you for another 4 years. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. And now we will hear from Jessica Lewis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Voice Lewis, and I am also running for the 14th Judicial District. I do regret that we are not able to do this event in person because I just think it matters so much more when you can be up with, in front of somebody and talk with people before and after an event like this. But I do hope that everyone takes the opportunity to connect with me individually to the extent you don't get your questions answered this evening. I am in this, as my tagline here speaks, to restore faith in our courts. And I want to make very clear that I am not here to specifically speak in any negative terms about my opponent, Judge Moyer. I am here to focus on things that I think are root issues in our courts at this time. I think that for too long, that our courts have been, unfortunately, under the control of one political party. And I believe in the fact that no matter what party that is, that when you have that be the case, that you have an environment that breeds corruption, it breeds favoritism, and the possibility for powers and influence to win the day in our courts instead of justice. And so I'm here on a mission to restore that faith in the fact that everyone can have an opportunity for justice in our courts. I started my career, I went to SMU Law School. I started my career at a large firm in town, Baker Botts, and was rising up through the ranks there, and then gave that away when I felt called to go into community service and work for a nonprofit here in Dallas. I care deeply about our Dallas communities, and it breaks my heart to see some of the divisions, including political divisions, that our city is wrestling with. And so as part of this, the goal is to eradicate those by making. Oh, so sorry. Yes, I'll continue this on my wrap up because there's plenty to say.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to unmute Judge Moyer as we prepare for questions here.
Okay.
All right, there we are. All right, so if you were here earlier in the earlier race, you may have heard me reference this concept of a civil Gideon right as it relates to litigants who perhaps may not be able to hire counsel. If you could maybe respond to this concept, clearly if elected, you won't have the authority to make that happen. But if you could reply to that issue that obviously has been percolating around the country. I know it was when I was practicing in Washington, D.C. maybe 20 years ago, and it's still percolating. So we'll start with Judge Moyer. And again, you have 1 minute, and then we'll go to Ms. Lewis for your response as well. All right, go right ahead.
I was appointed 3 years ago by our Supreme Court of Texas to serve as a commissioner on the Texas Commission for Access to Justice, where we have worked very hard to try to increase the number of lawyers who are helping self-represented litigants. I think that would require, a civil Gideon, as it's being called, would require a constitutional amendment that would have to be driven first by the legislature. I certainly do support that. I've supported increasing the filing fee for the purpose of paying for lawyers to represent self-represented litigants. And also, I have in my court on a number of occasions asked lawyers to represent individuals whom I thought were being unable to manage the litigation process by themselves. I'm a strong proponent.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes, thank you. I guess two things there. First goes to my point from earlier about making sure that we have courts where everyone feels like, even if they were representing themselves, where that's not always the strongest position to be in, but as Judge Purdy mentioned, that sometimes you might have affordability issues, that you know that your voice is given equal weight in the courtroom. I think as I've been on this mission, and part of the reason I got to this mission was because I would hear repeatedly that the idea, and I think this makes sense, is that the belief is that the more powerful the person is in the courtroom, the more that their voice matters, and that shouldn't be the case. And then second, I do think there's some systematic changes that need to be made, and that includes community knowledge, increasing the education of the community about the court system, and giving incentives to attorneys to provide actual legal services at more manageable rates for people all the way up into the mid-market range. Because a case, if you're not planning for it, a case could severely change the trajectory of your family if you have to hire counsel to represent you in court.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We do have a question in the chat. And this time we'll begin with Ms. Lewis, and Judge Moria will be second answering the question. The question is, given that the court has been closed due to COVID, what is your plan to move cases efficiently and quickly? Or what would your plan be, as the case may be? Ms. Lewis, you first, please.
Well, I think that all of us in the court and out have had to up our game technologically. And I do believe that a lot of those processes to try to streamline cases have been put into place, and those can be enhanced and made permanent. And I think specifically some things that we spoke about just now in access to justice can also be enhanced technologically. If there are things that we can do to make the billable hours that anyone has to pay an attorney fewer by creating efficiencies through technology, then I think that those things need to be thought about as keeping on a permanent basis, so that even when we are blessed to be beyond COVID-19, that we can keep costs down to allow for that access for justice. But I do think technology is a big part to make sure that people are comfortable participating in our system, as well as overall explaining and encouraging the importance of jury service.
Thank you. Judge Moria.
Ms. Lewis is exactly right about policies, technological policies being put into place during COVID. And I'm proud to say that I am the leader of that being done. I was elected last year by my 12 colleagues to be presiding judge, and I was responsible for spearheading the initiative of the 13 district judges to move us to technology. What this means is that some people participate via the telephone. Actually, back in 1994, I was the first judge in the George Allen building to use a regular telephone docket so people didn't have to come in to the court. We put in place, based on COVID, agreed on by all 12 of the judges at the time, and now joined by the 13th, to use Zoom, to use Microsoft Teams, where all of the judges are now handling their dockets without people coming into the courthouse. We are also working now under the guidance of the Texas Supreme Court on a set of procedures for going back to having jury trials. The vast majority, as you may know, the vast majority of the work that is done in the courts is in matters getting up to jury trials. We have active dockets of more than 1,000 cases, and the average judge is only trying about 25 or 30 cases a year. That means all of the other cases are being resolved pre-trial, and based upon my leadership, we've been able to use technology to get each and every district court back up and running using the technology seamlessly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so next question. What is your reaction to this statement? Elected officers or people in elected office should not stay there a long time, and sometimes there should be new blood. What is your reaction to that? And we'll start with Judge Moye, and we'll move to Ms. Lewis.
That was first articulated after Franklin Roosevelt won his 4th term, and the Constitution changed to prevent a president from running for more than 2 terms. Competence, I don't think, should ever be a disqualifier. We have a system in this state. We jealously guard the right to choose our elected officials. I think Texas citizens enjoy that right and cherish that right as they should. When an elected official is doing a good job, her or his constituents should be the only reason to stop that individual from continuing to do the work that they do, good, bad, or indifferent. If voters think someone is doing a good job, voters ought to continue to be able to elect that individual. This is the second issue we've had that would require a constitutional change.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes. On this issue, I agree with Judge Moye that I think that experience does matter, and I do want to see people of competence in our courts. I also, though, would harken back to the thing I brought up earlier with the idea of a strong political grasp on our court system, and also with the idea that with the elections as they are, so many people that are electing our judges aren't having the opportunity to regularly interact with what's happening in the courtroom. And I think that having that opportunity is something a lot of people wouldn't want anyway. You don't want to go down to have to be in front of the court, and you want to trust that a good job is being done. But when I think you have a set of folks that are being somewhat placed in those positions from one political party, I just think that there's a reason to have some concern. I know that I've heard that concern as even friends of mine that are Democrat, with the idea that there's the threat, if I don't rule a certain way, then I'll be primaried. And there's just so much politics in this that I do think that there's a place in our nation for checks and balances, and that should somehow maybe be translated. I don't know if that means term limits, but I do think that the transparency and balance in the courts is a good thing.
Can I make one comment, please?
Actually,
no one is being...
Actually, I'm sorry. You can save it for your closing.
Okay.
You probably said that to other people before. Put it in your closing. All right, so we've got a question from the audience. Question is, and I'm not sure that you can answer this question, but I'll read it out loud anyway. What are your thoughts on landlords being able to recoup money owed to them by tenants who are not paying rent and are not eligible for eviction? So I think this probably relates, I'm guessing, to the moratorium.
I assume it does. There is a contractual obligation between landlords and tenants. If a landlord has not been paid, then certainly that landlord has recourse to come to the court to seek redress. Judge Purdy made a really salient point earlier that even though there is a deferral, from in the context of foreclosures. Money is still being indebted. People still are having to accrue debt in order to stay where they are. I've not seen a case like that. Of course, landlord-tenant cases typically start in the county courts, in the JP courts, and then go to the county courts at law, which is where they have jurisdiction as opposed to the district court.
Yes, I would just add that, as Judge Moye mentioned, that the main courts are the JP courts for that in the first instance. And often, those do have a different feel to them. A lot of people do represent themselves in that area, but while I can't get into the law of any specific case here, I would encourage anyone that has those issues to reach out for assistance. I used to volunteer with the Housing Crisis Clinic for many years, where you can get legal advice on specific landlord-tenant issues, and be equipped with the documents and some, the forms that you can then take to those JP courts to be able to represent yourself in those issues.
Thank you. And for folks who don't know, there's several co-sponsors for tonight. One is the Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, of which I'm a member, and we just did a legal clinic online by way of Zoom regarding housing issues. So we'll try to see if we can make that recording available to you online, because we did include JP. We had Judge Valencia Nash, who was part of that panel. So that might address some of the issues as it relates to landlord-tenant law in the COVID world, right? In the COVID world, because folks, and I don't want to get too far afield here, but if you were renting a certain type of housing because of the moratorium, you may have the opportunity to delay payment. That doesn't mean you get out of payment. Those costs accrue.
Right.
But we'll try to make that recording available to the public at some point on the Dallas Alumni Facebook page or social media. Okay, so next question. We did obviously just hint about another court, that being the JP court. So let me throw out this question to you, and we will start in reverse order. I can't remember who we started. I think we started with Judge Moye last time, so we'll start with Ms. Lewis this time.
Yes.
Your thoughts about what could be improved, and this might be tricky, what could be improved, if anything, as it relates to the Texas Supreme Court, which, folks, this is the Supreme Court in Texas is the court of last resort as it relates to civil matters, okay? So what are your thoughts about the Texas Supreme Court? We did have a candidate a couple of weeks ago who is running for office for that particular court. So our audience heard a little bit about what that court does. So what are your thoughts about the Texas Supreme Court?
You're right, that is quite a loaded question. That is clearly our high court here in Texas. And I've been blessed to be able to meet several of the individuals that sit on it and think highly of those that I've met and of our court. And I'm grateful for the way that they serve us, and including with initiatives that they've been pushing. I know Chief Justice Hecht has been a very strong proponent of the equal access to justice campaigns that Judge Moye referenced earlier. And so I can't say that I would call out specifically anything that the court itself needs to improve upon. I would just say generally that access to justice for all people is something that we need to improve upon as a state, and ultimately as a country, and each state deciding what's best for them, and here what we can do in our county to make sure that people feel like, ideally, that justice is served in the court at the trial court level. I know that a lot of trial attorneys have the opinion that they're just going to go to trial court and they'll get whatever result they get and they're just going to appeal it. But the hope is for judicial economy, saving our taxpayer funds and saving the stress that having a prolonged litigation can cause to someone, that the more we can address the trial court level, the better.
Thank you very much, Judge Moye.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. Ms. Lewis started by speaking about one party controlling the court here, and that's only been By my math, since 2006, the Democratic Party has been successful in the trial courts in Dallas. There hasn't been a Democrat elected to the Texas Supreme Court in almost 30 years. And so I guess whatever criticism that one would have for the local courts, because for 8 or 12 or 14 years has been run by one party, would be multiplied by a factor of 3 for the Supreme Court. I am troubled by the Supreme Court. It's not about personalities. As my opponent, I know many of them. I consider some of them my friends for a long time. It has a well-earned reputation for being hostile to plaintiffs' jury verdicts. One of the reasons why we see fewer jury trials is because so many of them have been reversed by the Texas Supreme Court. I think that's problematic.
Thank you very much. All right, so it seems like we've got a little time on our hands here. So I think we can move now to closing. Originally we said closing would be 2 minutes, but we actually have a little more time. So you are welcome to speak freely. Go right ahead, Ms. Lewis, you'll be first.
All right, thank you so much. I've never been accused of not being able to use plenty of time. So I just have a few points. I would encourage people to check out my website, Lewis for Dallas, LEWIS Dallas.com, and I'll put that in the chat as well to get connected to my campaign and to see a little bit more about what I'm in this for. I've written every word of that and have been on this mission ever since I truly have been called to Dallas and the Dallas communities in a variety of ways since I got here in 2006. And this is the next step. And it is become clear to me that while I had poured myself into nonprofit service and to serve in my church and to support justice-related groups that are fighting for equal access to justice in various capacities, both locally and abroad, that particularly people in the faith community, and I am an unabashed Christ follower in that, and that we need to step up in our government service. And I think that is something that is long overdue. And I believe that when people that would call themselves followers of Christ actually put that in action in this very church city, that we would see the difference than what we have right now. We're very divided, we're very polarized. And I think that one way to break down those barriers is by getting to know our fellow Dallasites, our fellow residents here in Dallas County, and to serve. And so that is ultimately what I'm here to focus on. That includes increasing our faith in our courts, enhancing the idea that the worldview of the people that are in our courts matters, and truly being a judge for our communities. And that means being out in the community and trying to make our courts accessible to everyone. And so I would encourage you to please connect, and would love to answer the questions offline if anyone wants to reach out at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. And please be sure for everyone, put in the chat for everyone's view your website, please.
I will.
Great. Thank you so much. And now we will move on to Judge Moyer's comments. All right.
Okay, there we are.
There you are.
Thank you again very much. Thank you for this opportunity. There is one candidate in this race who has been endorsed by the nonpartisan Committee for a Qualified Judiciary. That is me, Eric Moyer. There is one candidate in this race with a 40-year history of litigating the very kind of cases that are tried in this court. That is me. Other than my friend Judge Purdy, there's probably nobody who spends more time in our community than do I, from church-based initiatives which provide legal services to more secular initiatives such as the Commission for Access to Justice. I don't just talk the talk. I've walked this walk for 4 decades. Your courts are important. Your courts, our courts, are the places where we come to get justice, where people who feel that they're aggrieved have an opportunity to be heard. And I'm proud to say, along with my Democratic colleagues who've been serving, some of whom have been serving since 2006, we have opened the court. Some people may call that corruption. I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to infer. We've opened the courts. People feel welcome. I recall when I started trying cases in 1979, there were not African Americans in any meaningful numbers on juries. That is no longer the case. There were not Latinos in meaningful numbers on the juries. That is no longer the case. There were not people that looked like members of our community in positions of leadership, either as lawyers and certainly not as judges. I'm proud to say I'm the first African American who's ever been elected to the Civil District Court in Dallas County. It's been my honor to serve. Those of you who have supported me in the past, I think, can rightly be proud of your service. My name is Eric Moyer. I stand for fairness. I stand for safety via the rule of law, which we do enforce in your civil district courts. I would like your continued support. Thank you all very much. God bless you.
Thank you. Again, we want to make sure that you put your website link into the chat for everyone's view. Thank you. And folks, let's give them a virtual round of applause for both.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Lewis and Judge Moyer, because it takes a lot to run for office. So right now, we're going to run our educational PowerPoint for you again. We are waiting for candidates from Judicial Districts 162 and 254 to join us. So go ahead, run to that refrigerator, get a cold glass of water or whatever beverage you'd like, and we'll be here as we attempt to wait for the other candidates. Thank you so much, folks. Hang in there. We're going to show this PowerPoint for you.
One day.
Righty, folks. So I have been informed. I have been informed that at this time we actually have an opportunity to end the night a little early. But before we do so, I want to call out all of the sponsors for Monday Night Politics. They've been sponsors throughout time and for every Monday. And they include the NAACP Dallas chapter, the Dallas Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Metropolitan Dallas chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Dallas Alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, the Dallas Association of Realists, the Dallas Panhellenic Council, the Theta Alpha chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, the Omicron Mu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Dallas League of Young Professionals, the North Texas Cluster of the Links, the South Dallas Business and Professional Women's Club Incorporated, KHVN, the Miss Radio Show, the St. Luke Political and Social Action Ministry, and none other than where we usually have this in person, the African American Museum. These are our regular sponsors, and we're so grateful to them. You probably saw some of the slides. You saw one of the slides that talked about an upcoming event where Delta Sigma Theta will be sponsoring a free webinar this Thursday, October 1st, featuring attorneys and representatives from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. They will be talking about your rights to vote, rights as you go to the polls. And just as a footnote, their lawyers had a trial today, actually, down in Southern Texas, representing the folks at PV-A&M who've been trying to protect their rights to vote, trying to make sure that they have on-campus voting polls. So that trial took place today. So anyway, so please take advantage of this upcoming free webinar. And again, we were waiting for our candidates for the District Judge 162 as well as 254, but it seems that they both have prior commitments. So I just want to thank you all for joining us here today. And we'll be back yet again for a couple of more Mondays. Make sure you take a look at the chat because our candidates have put their websites in there. You can kind of dig a little more deeply into some of their qualifications. And again, we'll be here next week, ready for you and ready for our candidates. So have a wonderful and safe evening. Take care.